Welcome to Linda's Corner. My name is Linda Bjork. I'm an author, speaker, blogger, podcast host, and the founder and executive director of a nonprofit charity called Hope for Healing. Today, I'm going to share some stories behind how the books and the nonprofit came to be, and I'm going to start in the middle rather than the beginning. I had written a book called Crushed, and I had an opportunity to do a promotion on Amazon, where for a few specified days, anyone could download the Kindle version of the book for free. And I had an idea. My son runs a successful YouTube channel with about 30,000 followers, and I thought it would be awesome if he'd help me out by giving a shout out about the book and letting his subscribers know that there was an opportunity to get it for free. So I called to ask him, and he didn't answer, so I left a message. And then I also sent a text, but he never got back to me. So a few days later, I sent a follow-up text. And when he didn't respond to that one, I realized he was avoiding me on purpose. So I let it go. And the time for the promotion came and went, and then eventually I received a phone call from my son. And he said, Mom, you may have noticed that I've been avoiding responding to your messages. And I said, yes, I did notice that. And he said, I've been delaying an awkward conversation. And I thought, oh, this is not going to be good. But I said, okay, tell me what's on your mind. And he continued, I got the messages that you sent earlier, but I didn't respond because I saw your video and it triggered me. There's a scene where you're crying on the sofa. And I thought, if anyone can pretend to cry that convincingly for a video, then they can also be pretending to be happy. And I said, wow, okay. So you don't want to support or endorse me because you think I'm a fraud. And he said, well, yeah, that's basically it. And I said, wow, okay. Then there are a few things that I need to explain. You were out of the country for a while when you spent 2 years in Holland. And then, immediately following that, you went out of state for college and you got married. And you were busy focusing on your schooling and your family, and those are good things. But while you were away, you missed a couple chapters about what was going on at home. You may not have been aware that I was struggling with depression and anxiety. It got so bad that I wished I could just cease existing so that the pain and the misery would stop. And for a long time, I would get up each morning before anyone else was up, and I would curl up on the couch and sob because I knew that I had responsibilities and people to take care of, and I had to endure another day, and I didn't want to. And then I would wipe away my tears, wash my face, try to put on a good face, and then take care of my responsibilities for the day. I thought this was my new reality. This was as good as it was ever going to get, and the best I could hope for from this point on was to be able to endure each miserable, hopeless day for the rest of my life. Then I went through a long, challenging, and painful process of healing until I climbed out of the darkness and became myself again. I felt compelled to write a book about going through that experience and the healing process, so I could teach other people how to climb out of the darkness. I didn't want to do it, but it felt like something I had to do. My daughter Sarah, who was a college student, suggested that we make a video about the creation of the book, and she wanted to film and direct it. She told me what to do, and she wanted a scene of me crying on the couch. And I thought, oh, that's going to be awkward. I'm not an actor. I don't know how to cry on demand. But when I curled up on the couch, I was suddenly overwhelmed by a flood of memories. It's difficult to describe. You see, the healing process wasn't instant like flipping on a light switch. It was gradual, like a sunrise. And when the sun rises, those moment-to-moment changes are so natural, gradual, and imperceptible that by the time it's light, you don't remember what it was like when it was dark. And that's the way it was with me. By the time I healed and felt like myself again, I couldn't really remember what it felt like to be submersed in the darkness. And I almost wondered if it ever really happened. It couldn't really have been that bad, right? Maybe it was just like a really bad dream or something. But when I laid down on that couch for this scene in this video, all these memories flooded through me. And for a moment, I relived those feelings of hopelessness, despair, misery, and anguish. And I realized, oh my gosh, this was real. It was all real. And I realized how far I'd come. And I wanted to go back in time and visit that former me who was lying on the couch and tell her to hang on a little longer and to assure her that it was going to be okay. And I also realized that there were probably other people who were still lying on their couches, buried in their misery and hopelessness. And I felt an overwhelming desire to help them and comfort them and show them how to overcome the darkness so that they could be happy again. And I told my son, during that scene that offended you so much, I wasn't acting. I was remembering. And those tears were real. If you want to see that video, it's on the website, hopeforhealingfoundation.org, on the Crushed page. Just type Crushed in the search bar and it will pull it up for you. So what I've done with my books and my charity is to speak up and to speak the truth. And when you do that, you become vulnerable. And people can misunderstand and judge and condemn you. Even people that you care about and who are close to you. And it's not very fun. But speaking the truth and becoming vulnerable also empowers me to reach out and help other people. And that is what my books and my charity are all about. I have received dozens of thank you letters from readers who have said, I can't believe you wrote what you did. I can't believe you were so honest. But I'm grateful that you shared. It felt like you were inside my head and that I was reading my own story. And I've had this response not only from people who are struggling with feelings of depression, but people who are going through any challenge at all. Somehow, the feelings that we experience and the process that we go through are very similar and relatable. So, I went through this process of healing by doing small, simple, consistent daily action steps, and it worked. But afterwards, I thought, why did that work? When you describe what it is that I did, it sounds laughable, ridiculous, offensive even, to suggest that such simple steps would be able to solve such complicated problems. So why did it work? And could it work for someone else? And so I began doing research and looking up scientific studies that related to each step. And I learned that there were valid scientific reasons why it worked. And the process can help anybody to heal. So I created a nonprofit charity called Hope for Healing, where I share these tools and this process so that anyone, anywhere, can use these incredible resources to heal. Last year, we helped over 100,000 people increase happiness, build confidence and self-esteem, manage stress, improve relationships, and help alleviate symptoms of depression and anxiety. We offer lots of free resources, including articles, books, audio courses, and more at hopeforhealingfoundation.org. These tools really work, but only if you actually use them. Education doesn't change things. It's application that changes things. If you just learn about them, you might think, yeah, whatever, that's stupid. But if you do them consistently, they can change your life. In a nutshell, in order to overcome depression, you need to be able to successfully do two things. First, you have to alter the chemistry of the brain. And second, you have to be able to reprogram a filter in the brain called the reticular activating system, or RAS. And I'll briefly explain about both of these. So, let's talk about the chemistry of the brain first. The first thing you need to understand about depression is that it is not just in a person's head, and it is not that they just need to snap out of it. Our brains have a system of rewards that bring pleasure and help us feel good. There is a part of the brain that we call the reward center, and when we experience something pleasurable, there are neurotransmitters like dopamine, serotonin, and endorphins, which flood our neural pathways in the reward center, and that makes us feel good. Those good feelings are created by a chemical reaction in the brain. But our brains are instruments of balance, and we have another system that exerts a restraining force. This system is called the nociception modulatory system, and it emits molecules called nociceptin. In normal brain function, this is part of how the brain modulates pain, so it's a good thing. However, when systems are not functioning optimally, it causes problems, and I'll explain why. Nociceptin suppresses dopamine. In essence, it is anti-dopamine. It's like kryptonite to it. It just shuts it off. If there is an imbalance in the brain and it is producing too much nociceptin, it can neutralize feelings of joy and happiness and restrain motivation, so you feel apathetic. Nociceptin has also been dubbed the frustration neuron, and it could help explain on a chemical level why we give up. From my experience, when I was in my dark place, I could look at a beautiful sunset or hear a child's laughter and feel absolutely nothing. The good feelings normally associated with pleasant experiences were simply not there, and it was very frustrating and discouraging. The bottom line is that there are valid physiological and chemical explanations for feelings of depression, anxiety, and so on. It's not just in their head, and it's not just a simple matter of needing to snap out of it. And there's more. The natural processes of the brain make depression become progressively worse over time if it is not stopped. Let me explain. There is a network of neurons located in the brainstem called the reticular activating system, or RAS, which is the gateway into the brain. All of the sensory information that we encounter first enters through the RAS, which determines where to send it. The reticular activating system acts as a filter, so we don't become overwhelmed by an overload of information. The job of the RAS is very important because it is estimated that the human brain takes in about 11 million bits of information every second. But on average, we're only consciously aware of about 40 bits of information per second. So when I say that the RAS filters information, I'm not talking about filtering out a little bit of information. I'm talking about a major filtration process, reducing input from 11 million down to 40. It's the job of the RAS to decide what is important and what can be safely ignored. When the RAS is deficient, such as in cases of autism, ADD, and ADHD, too much information is allowed into the conscious mind, and it causes a sensory overload and a difficulty in concentration and ability to focus. So the job of the RAS is very important to our safety, our comfort, and our ability to function. However, the next question is, or at least should be, how does the RAS decide which information is important? It makes those decisions based on automatic programming that you and I created without even being aware of it. It is done on a subconscious level and is largely determined by what we focus on. If we spend a lot of time focusing on a particular thing, then the automatic subconscious programming of the RAS assumes that information must be important. That's why, say you're trying to buy a new car, and you've been researching a particular make and model, and all of a sudden you start to notice that car everywhere. Or say you're expecting a baby, and then all of a sudden you start to see pregnant women everywhere. The truth is that the cars and those expectant mothers were there all along. But the RAS considered that information to be something that was safe to ignore. However, now that you're focusing on it, the RAS figures that it must be important, so it points them out for you. This normal and natural system of the RAS causes some problems when we're dealing with mental and emotional issues, such as depression, anxiety, and low self-esteem. A person who is struggling with depression is often focused on thoughts like, my life is miserable, people would be better off without me, there is no hope, and so on. A person who is struggling with feelings of low self-esteem often has circulating thoughts like, I'm not good enough, nobody likes me, I'm a failure, and so on. Because these are the predominant thought patterns, the RAS uses this as the basis for determining what is important. This means that anything that doesn't support those negative feelings and thoughts are filtered out. And the only information that enters the conscious are those things that support the depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, failure mentality, and so on. While anything that is positive or uplifting is filtered out. So no matter what's going on around you, the only things that you notice, the only parts that actually enter the conscious mind are the negative things. This strengthens and builds on the problem by continually adding evidence that the feelings of depression or low self-esteem are valid, and the situation becomes progressively worse. Furthermore, to add insult to injury, the feelings associated with depression have been shown to be addictive. They want to grow, and they want to stay, and they're really hard to get rid of. So, when we're dealing with depression, the cards are really stacked against us, and it totally stinks. I understand how that feels. When I was in my dark place, that overproduction of nociceptins in my brain canceled out the dopamine, so I couldn't feel happy. My RAS was filtering out anything positive, so I could only see the negative in life and in myself. I felt useless, and that people would be better off without me. I felt hopeless and powerless, and those are not good feelings. In order to be able to heal from depression, anxiety, low self-esteem, and other mental and emotional issues, we need to be able to successfully do two things. First, we need to alter the chemistry in our bodies and our brains. And second, we need to redirect the focus of that filter in our brains, called the reticular activating system, or RAS. Making these changes is difficult, but fortunately, there's a difference between difficult and impossible. The initial step in healing from depression is feeling a glimmer of hope that healing is actually possible. Without hope, there is little desire to fight depression because your mind tells you that nothing works anyway, so why bother trying anything? But there is hope for healing. Through MRI scans, we now have proof that it is possible to cause significant, measurable changes in brain chemistry and functioning by making conscious changes in the way that we think and in the way that we act. And knowing this matters, because one of the most important aspects of healing and recovering from any mental or emotional issue is the belief that change is possible. Researchers call this positive expectancy, and it has a tremendous impact on whether or not any kind of treatment or therapy is successful. In order to do the hard work of changing or healing, we have to believe that change is actually an option. The good news is that change really is an option. Healing is possible. We have more power than many people realize. Our bodies are designed to heal themselves. We just need to kickstart it in the right direction. So, let's talk about chemistry again. Depression has a chemical basis, and this is why professional help and medication are so beneficial for treating anxiety and depression. But in addition to those options, it's also possible for a person to create changes in their body chemistry by their beliefs, their words, and their actions. Let me repeat that. We can do things that alter the chemistry in our brains. I'll give you a quick example. You can affect the chemistry in your body to increase confidence and mood in just 90 seconds by doing this one simple trick. Put your chin up, smile, even if you don't feel like it. Pull your shoulders back, stand straight and tall with your hands relaxed at your sides or in fists on your hips. Keep both feet pointing forward and keep weight even on both legs. Hold this position for at least 90 seconds. Research shows that holding this position for 1 to 2 minutes will not only make you appear more confident and happy, it actually makes you feel more confident and happy. Charles Darwin was actually the first to hypothesize that there is a connection between body language and our emotion that goes both ways. We smile when we feel good, but we also feel good when we smile. Today, that theory is called the facial feedback hypothesis, and it has been verified in study after study after study. The physical expressions of our body language influence our emotional experience, and it does it on a physiological, chemical level. Standing tall, pulling the shoulders back, and raising the chin causes a slight increase in the level of testosterone, while simultaneously lowering the level of cortisol, which is a stress hormone. These chemical changes help us feel less stressed and more confident. Furthermore, smiling, even if it's a fake or forced smile, stimulates the production of mood-enhancing neurotransmitters in the brain, like endorphins and dopamine, and that can help us feel better. So, by doing a simple action that takes less than 2 minutes, we can modify the level of chemicals in our body to increase confidence, boost mood, and relieve stress, and the effects can last for up to a couple hours. Our body language, our actions, our words, and our thoughts can affect the chemistry in our body, which in turn affects the way that we feel. There are many tools that we can use to create positive changes in our body chemistry and help restore a healthy balance in our bodies and our minds. If you'd like to learn more, there's information on the Hope for Healing website at hopeforhealingfoundation.org. In addition to changing the chemistry in our bodies, we also need to work on reprogramming the RAS filter in our brains. There are techniques that can help us make those changes as well. One technique is the power of repetition. We can create positive statements about ourselves and repeat them over and over to create a new, healthier, positive belief system. Research shows that if you hear something enough times, you begin to believe it. We are more likely to believe things that we hear over and over again just because we heard it over and over again, and it doesn't matter if it's true or not. We believe things because they are familiar. Scientists call this phenomenon the mere exposure effect, and it's baffling because it has nothing to do with truth, reason, or logic. This is one of the reasons why it's so dangerous to have circulating thoughts and statements like, "I'm not good enough," "Nobody likes me," "I'm a failure," and so on. If you repeat those thoughts and those statements often enough, you begin to believe them, even when they're not true. Furthermore, a child who has been told over and over again that they can't do something, or that they're stupid, or worthless, or not safe, or not good enough, will accept these familiar sayings as true. The flip side of the coin is that once we believe something, whether or not it's true, our subconscious will fight to protect those beliefs by rejecting anything that is unfamiliar or contradicts what we already believe. Sadly, that means that the child who has grown up with the belief that they're stupid or worthless or not safe or not good enough will then fight to defend and support those beliefs their whole life. That is, unless they go through the conscious effort to change those beliefs. When thoughts and feelings are repeated over and over, they become familiar, and we believe them to be the only possible truth. It may seem ironic, but a person may subconsciously believe that feelings of worthlessness, unworthiness, invisibility, or rejection are more safe than feelings of being loved, valued, accepted, and appreciated, because those thoughts and feelings are unfamiliar and therefore dangerous. People often subconsciously fight to hold on to those hurtful thoughts and beliefs. They reject thoughts about happiness, positivity, hopefulness, confidence, worthiness, success, or peace because they contradict what their minds already believe to be true. The mere exposure effect makes it difficult to feel confident, worthy, happy, and successful when you're stuck in a pattern of feeling worthless, sad, hopeless, and unlovable. However, there is a difference between difficult and impossible. If a thought keeps running through your mind like, I'm not good enough, replace it with another opposite and positive statement such as, I am worthy and deserving of being loved, valued, and appreciated. I am loved, valued, and appreciated. I am good enough. And repeat that over and over again. There's a lot of truth taught in the children's book, The Little Engine That Could, by Watty Piper. Repeating, I think I can, or whatever positive mantra is applicable, really does make a difference. It won't be easy, however. When you say those things, your subconscious may tell you that they're lies. Studies show that once we believe something, we instinctively defend and protect it without even being aware of it. But if we keep at it relentlessly and consistently, that power of repetition can retrain our brains to accept those things as true. Earlier, I mentioned the RAS filter in the brain, which functions on subconscious programming and is largely determined by what we focus on. If we spend a lot of time focusing on a particular thing, then the automatic subconscious programming of the RAS assumes that information must be important. When we focus on positive things by repeating them over and over, it helps to reprogram the parameters that the RAS uses as a filter. This makes it possible for positive thoughts and positive feelings to enter our conscious mind, which in turn helps us feel better. However, don't think that it will be easy or that a change will occur overnight. It won't be like flipping on a light switch. It is gradual, like a sunrise, and requires small, consistent, positive action steps. The reality is that healing is difficult. From my own experience, I can say that struggling with depression was really hard, but trying to emerge from depression was even harder. And I'll try to explain why this is the case. I already explained about the mere exposure effect and how we believe things that are familiar. And once we believe something, whether or not it's true, our subconscious will fight to protect those beliefs by rejecting anything that is unfamiliar or contradicts what we already believe. Our subconscious believes that things that are familiar are safe, and unfamiliar things are dangerous. The job of our subconscious is to keep us safe, and without knowing it or being aware of it, we chose the parameters of what safety looks like. It looks familiar. It looks like what we already know and feel comfortable with. That means that if we say or do something that is contrary to the current subconscious programming of what is familiar, the brain considers this to be a dangerous threat and sends out a warning that in order to be safe, you need to go back. When that warning hits, it can feel like running into an impenetrable wall, and people naturally give up. So let's look at this process from my personal experience. At the time, what looked familiar was sadness, hopelessness, and despair. That was familiar. So my subconscious decided that this is what safety looks like. And when I began the process of trying to pull out of that and do things to feel happy again and to think positive thoughts, my subconscious freaked out. It decided that these new ideas were dangerous threats, and it sent off warning signals in my mind and my body. It's difficult to adequately describe, but it literally felt like I was going to die. I felt all the emotional and physiological symptoms as if my life was being threatened, and my subconscious warned me that the only safe option was to go back. It was awful, indescribably awful. I wanted to give up on day one. Fortunately, I had been warned that this would happen, and so I knew what to do. To get through that wall, I used one of the tools from an emotional first aid kit. An emotional first aid kit is just a list of simple tools or actions that can cause an immediate, although temporary, positive effect, like singing, for example. And that's what I did. I cranked up one of Shakira's songs called Try Anything from the movie Zootopia and sang along. Singing has been scientifically proven to lower stress, relieve anxiety, and alleviate endorphins, which make you feel uplifted and happy. It helps relax muscle tension and decreases the level of the stress hormone cortisol in the bloodstream, and can help take your mind off the day's troubles and boost your mood. In addition, scientists have identified a tiny organ in the ear called the sacculus, which responds to the frequencies created by singing. This response creates an immediate sense of pleasure, regardless of what the singing sounds like, so you don't have to have an amazing voice to feel the positive effects of singing. Participants in one study showed significant decreases in both anxiety and depression levels after just 1 month of adding singing to their daily routine. And from my own experience, I can say that it really works. When I hit that wall and sang a song, I found that singing it through once wasn't enough. I had to repeat it 3 times before the feelings of panic that my life was in mortal danger subsided, and I knew I would survive. Now, the remedy is surprisingly simple, but it takes some courage to follow through. Think about it. Say you're watching a movie and a monster is chasing somebody. What do? They run away or they hide. They don't jump out and sing a song, because if they sing a song, then the monster will find them and eat them. But if they run away and hide, then there's a chance of survival. And that is what our subconscious is trying to do. It's trying to increase our chance of survival. But in this case, your subconscious is misinformed, and it's time to let our conscious mind take over. We don't want to just survive. We want to thrive. We want to be happy and confident. We want to heal. Keep a list of emotional tools handy that work best for you, that you can use as an emotional first aid kit to work through those walls that try to obstruct progress. There's a list of emotional wellness tools that can be used as an emotional first aid kit on the Hope for Healing website at hopeforhealingfoundation.org. If we can push through these walls and keep going, then our thoughts and feelings slowly change what is familiar. And also, the RAS naturally adjusts its programming to allow positive input without fighting or outright rejecting it. This fight with our subconscious is temporary during a transition period, but it's also inevitable. And that causes many people to give up because they don't understand what's happening. All they know is that there is a warning voice in their head that they're not safe, and so they quit and retreat. But since you listened to my message today, now you know what is happening, why it's happening, and what to do about it. Now here's a final secret that a lot of people don't understand. Education or knowledge doesn't change things. Application is what changes things. Just learning new and insightful information won't help anybody heal. What makes the difference is acting on it. It is a process of consistently following a pattern of small, positive action steps. I invite you to visit the Hope for Healing website at hopeforhealingfoundation.org, where we have lots of free resources to help people not only learn, but also how to apply that knowledge. And that empowers people to change their lives. I also invite you to read my book, Crushed: A Journey Through Depression. In closing, I'd like to share a quote by John C. Maxwell. He said, "You'll never change your life until you change something you do daily. The secret of your success is found in your daily routine." See you next time on Linda's Corner.